projectors are amateurs, and they like the Blue Snowball microphone, which costs about $80. It's USB, plug and play. Just it works, and it's pretty nice. I mean, it's got little things on the back for directional things, and I don't even know what that's for. But it makes you sound pretty good, and as long as you don't, record in your bathroom, please God, don't record in your bathroom. Like, you just can't have sound bouncing all over the place. That's the main thing. So, like, even sitting on your bed, pretty good. Like, as long as you don't, have this cavernous bat cave that you record in, echo and things like that.
I record in a bat cave.
That's terrible.
For a little bit more, you can get, I think Samson's in the same price range, and it's another USB mic. And MXL makes USB mic, actually they make several, and they're probably in the $100 to $120 range. So you kick in a bit more, you get a little bit better mic. And then recording software depends on your system, but there's free for whatever system you're on.
Yeah, Audacity is a program that is available for Mac and PC. It's completely free, and it works really good for recording.
It's very popular. Very popular.
Yay! I love that program. It's amazing. It's so fun.
And a lot of the Macs come with GarageBand, I guess, which is more than adequate for recording, your voice. So.
Okay, well, I guess on the topic of choosing a topic for your podcast, there's a million different podcasts out there, so the chance of you picking something that nobody's done is really slim. So what you have to do is just make it unique, try to be different with it in some way, be entertaining. You don't want to just
you're
try
talking, podcast versus audio drama.
Right.
I mean,
well, I wanted to cover basic podcasts. I mean, we do audio drama. We'll get into that in a little bit. But.
Okay.
If you can find a website to partner with when you launch, maybe about the same topic, it will get you a much bigger initial audience. Our first real show that we started was our Superman show. We partnered with Superman homepage, which is in like the top 50 websites in traffic in the world. So it got us this huge initial audience, and so that can really help you when you're starting out. But of course, you have to keep them entertained so that they keep coming back. And part of that too is being consistent with your releases. If you just put out like 3 or 4 episodes and never do any more, or you take 2 months between them and nobody knows when the next ones are coming, then they're not going to stick around. So I found that to be a problem with a lot of other podcasting companies out there. I mean, not that I don't want to, disparage anybody, but I think our growth and success has been attributed to how consistent we have been. We have a full release schedule for the entire year. So we have over a dozen shows that people can find out when any episode is coming out for the whole year. So.
And it's good that we talk about scheduling, because even if you do a podcast on really any subject, like the way, and this was actually when we were starting all of this, I mean, seriously, we had no idea what we were doing. So, we had a lot of different advice from a lot of different people, and one of the things that really came out as a really good thing was we started off with so many episodes in the bag already. So you start off with 3 or 4 that you've already done, completely done, start to finish, and then say, okay, now this is going to be my release schedule. And so you always have those in the bag. So if you have something that happens, or something gets off track, or, I need to take a trip, or, somebody gets sick, then you're not just stuck with, I missed a release date, which we think is a terrible thing, because we're all about schedules. So, as long as you have that backlog, it's insurance, and that you can stick with your release dates and keep your audience going, and you have every month, and they know they can count on you.
Right, and then even if you fall behind in production, the actual episodes coming out aren't affected, and you have time to catch up without the audience ever being any either. So that was a really good point. We started from the very beginning. We worked like 6 months in advance on scripts and 3 months in advance on complete.
We still are, on our Earth P shows. Those are all, we say Earth P for our DC Universe shows. They're written 6 months in advance, and the production is fully complete 3 months in advance. We try, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it gets a little weird though, because we have commentaries too. So sometimes, like if you're on a commentary, you're like 6 months in the future, and you're like, what can I say? And
not spoil it.
Right. Which episode am I on? But it works out really well on the production side.
And I would say also vital importance for any podcast to succeed is that you've got to get it in iTunes. Over 75% of our traffic comes from iTunes. And it's free to submit your podcast there, but once you do, you can't submit it again. So if there's a problem, even like one error in the code, it won't go through. You'll never get it back in. I think it took us a year to get it in, and you can't get customer service for iTunes on the phone. It's impossible. They don't exist. So there are feed validators out there. If you go to Google and just do a search for like RSS feed validator, you can plug your podcast in there ahead of time. It will show you all the problems with it. And make sure you do that and fix it before you submit to iTunes, because if you don't get it into iTunes, you're just missing out on most of your traffic that you'll ever have.
Yeah. Yeah. Sad but true.
Are you talking about like file corruption or?
No.
Just like if there's an error in the code of your XML file, if you're missing, one tag that you need that iTunes
Well, maybe we
looks
should
for.
back up a little and explain what an XML file is.
Well, an XML file is a piece of HTML code that contains the podcast, and we can't really get into the specifics of creating those now, but there's services on the web that will create them for you, or the way that I learned how to do it was go to a podcast that you like to listen to and look at the feed. If you bring the feed up in your browser and go to the view source and just look at it, you'll learn a whole lot about how it's done, and you can just tweak the details to fit all of your show. And then obviously test it, have your friends test it, have your mom test it, have everybody test it that you can think of before you try submitting it to iTunes and make sure it's working as good as possible. And then when you submit it, say your prayer. Good luck.
And when your stuff is already in iTunes, then people can subscribe to it there. Every time, people will log into iTunes and can check your podcasting feed and see if you've got a new episode up, and it'll download it if you've got it all set up to do that, right to your iPod, and so you get. It's like having the subscription really helps you get a lot more, because then people are just automatically going to get it and keep listening.
Right, and since when we first started, our shows weren't even podcasts. We were just putting audio dramas up on the internet. And then we started podcasting them, and then we got them into iTunes. And if we hadn't, I don't think, we've had 11 million episodes downloaded and 46 million podcast hits, and all of that I would attribute to iTunes. It's a horrible, horrible program to work with in terms of podcasts. It will frustrate you. You'll want to, bang your head on the wall. But without it, you can't survive. All right, so I thought we'd move into talking more about audio drama.